All right, so moving on to the cardiac cycle. So what are the sequence of events that will be taking place each time your heart contracts? So what is the very first thing that's going to be recorded on the EKG? If you remember, this will be the atrial depolarization, which is recorded by the EKG as my P wave. So my atria did depolarize. And if you remember, when I depolarize, I will do what as a cardiac muscle cell in response to the depolarization? I will contract. So this depolarization of the atria will be followed by atrial contraction. So the atria here will start to contract, and this will allow me to squeeze the blood for it to move down from the atria to the ventricles, as is shown on this diagram. So when I contract the atria, the blood that remained in the atria would be squeezed down to the ventricles. We call this phase is my atrial contraction phase of the cardiac cycle. Next wave that's going to be recorded by the EKG is going to be the QRS complex. And the QRS complex, if you remember, this is showing the ventricular depolarization. So I've got the ventricles on here. They will start to depolarize. And as I depolarize, what's going to happen as a result of any depolarization, if you remember? Depolarize is you're going to be contracting. So what follows the QRS on here is going to be a ventricular contraction. So the ventricles, as a result of the depolarization, will start to contract. When I contract the ventricles, if you remember, what's going to happen to my volume? What's going to happen to the volume of the ventricles as they contract? I have a reduction in my volume, right? And as I reduce the volume, if you remember, what's going to happen to the pressure of the blood located inside the chamber? Exactly, the pressure will increase. If you remember, as I increase the pressure, the blood is going to be trying to move to the side with lower pressure. In this case, if I'm looking just at the left side of the heart, here, just for simplification, the same thing is going to be taking place on both sides. right and left. But here I'm drawing just the left side for simplification. So when I reduce the volume of the ventricle like this, pressure of the blood inside is going to be increased, higher pressure. This means what for me? This means that the blood is going to be trying to leave the ventricle, going to a side with lower pressure. So where do I have lower pressure in this case? I have lower pressure in my atrium, and I have lower pressure in my aorta. If we're looking here at the left side. If we're looking at the right side, this is going to be the right atrium and the pulmonary trunk. So here I have created higher pressure of blood in my left ventricle. So the blood is going to be trying to move backwards to the atrium and move forwards to the aorta. It's going to be trying to do both in the same time. But if you remember, the AV valve cusps are directed like this. So once the blood is going to be trying to move backwards, what's going to happen? The cusps will be moving up like this, preventing the backflow of the blood into the atrium. So what's going to happen in this case, as the blood is going to be trying to move backwards, the AV valves will close. Here, if we're looking at the left side, this means that the mitral valve here is the one that will close, preventing the backflow of the blood. Remember, why the mitral valve will close before the opening of the aortic semilunar valve. Remember, during relaxation of the ventricles, what was the blood pressure? Remember, we mentioned that the blood pressure is 120 over 80 millimeter mercury. So what I mean by 80 millimeter mercury means that the blood pressure here in my aorta at the time when the ventricles were relaxing was around 80 millimeter mercury. So I'm starting to contract right now. I'm starting to contract. So what is the blood pressure in my aorta? It's 80 millimeter mercury, 80 millimeter mercury from the previous contraction, from the previous relaxation and contraction. Compared to the atrium, atrium has a much lower pressure, around zero pressure. So what's going to happen if I'm saying here that the pressure in my ventricles as I contract will go up to 120 millimeter mercury. So the pressure difference between 120 and 0 is 120. And the pressure difference between 120 and 80 is 40 millimeter mercury. So here, the pressure difference between the ventricle and the atrium is much greater than the difference between the pressure of the ventricle and the aorta. So the blood is going to be trying to go to which direction first, the atrium or the aorta? What do you think? If you have two pathways, one, you're going to be faced by a resistance of 80. And the other one, you won't have any resistance. So you're going to be trying to go to the one with less resistance, right? So the one that you've got with less resistance, you see on here, has cusps that will prevent your movement. So what you're going to do? So if you have two roads on here, and you're traveling with your car, you're seeing a smaller road, so it's narrow, it has a lot of resistance. This is the aorta. It has 80 millimeter mercury as a resistance. And another road which is clear, much wider, it has 0 resistance. So you will decide to do what? You will decide to go in the road with less resistance. But you will see that in the middle of the road, there is work that is done. So the road is blocked. You can't go through this way. So what you're going to do, you're going to be moving back, and you're going to take the road with higher resistance, because this is the only pathway available for you now. This is the same exact concept here. The blood is going to be trying to move up to the atrium, but as it tries to move back to the atrium, it closes the AV valve. So the only path is going to be to allow the blood to travel to the aorta or the pulmonary trunk if we're looking at the left side. So the blood will now open the aortic semilunar valve. So there was a time where the blood closes here, the AV valve, and it didn't reach enough pressure, enough force to overcome the resistance to open the semilunar valve. So there is a point at which the blood succeeded to close AV valve, but it's not having the pressure, it's not having pressure enough to open the aortic semilunar valve. So both valves are closed at this point. Will there be any change in the size of my ventricle? If there is no blood moving, would there be any change in the volume of the ventricle? What do you think? I'm increasing the tension. So I'm increasing the tension from 0, let's say. I'm going up, 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 or let's say I'm starting from a suction force, I'm starting from -6. I'm going up, 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 0. Up, 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 5. So 5 is greater than the 0 in my atrium. So I was able to close the AV valve. But having a pressure of 5, what do you think? Having a pressure of 5, would it be able to overcome the resistance here of 80 millimeter mercury in my aorta? No, not yet. So you're going to keep going up, increasing the tension. So what's going to happen when you get a pressure of 120? You will be able now to overcome the resistance and open the semilunar valves for you to eject the blood. So between the closure of AV valve and the opening of the semilunar valve, would I be able to move the blood out? There is no movement of the blood, right? And as a result, would I have any reduction in the volume of the ventricle? I'm increasing the tension, I'm contracting, but Would there be any reduction? I have blood inside. I can't reduce the size of the ventricle. So what do we call this phase? This time between the closure of AV valve and the opening of the semilunar valve, it's my isovolumetric contraction phase. What's iso? Iso means constant. It's constant. And volume here, volume, metric means length. So this is the contraction phase during which there is a constant volume of my ventricle. There is no volume change. Why? Because you didn't reach enough pressure of the blood to open the semilunar valve. Or measure, volume measure. All right. So what we're looking at here is an isovolumetric contraction phase. I have constant volume of the ventricle. What if I kept increasing the pressure inside? Kept increasing the pressure, kept increasing the pressure. I reach the pressure now greater than the one I have in my aorta. So what's going to happen? I open semilunar valves and the blood is going to be ejected. So now I opened semilunar valve and now the blood is going to be ejected out of my ventricle. So blood ejection here is going to be the second phase of the ventricular contraction. So we've got first isovolumetric contraction phase, and then it's going to be followed by ventricular ejection phase, in which I was capable to open the semilunar valves and eject the blood out. This is again my ventricular ejection phase. Both of those isovolumetric contraction phase and the ventricular ejection phase, this is going to be my ventricular systole. What's systole? Systole means ventricular contraction. Is this concept clear? Is this concept clear? All right. So back to the AKG. If you remember, all this did take place after you did depolarize the ventricle. So you start to contract. As you contract, you increase the tension. And as you increase the tension, you close the AV valve first, and then you open semilunar valves. What's going to be recorded next on the AKG is going to be my T wave, which corresponds to ventricular repolarization. And if you remember, when I repolarize, I relax to refill. So this is a general concept that we've stated last class. You remember, I repolarize the ventricles. So what the ventricles will do, they will start to relax. I'm reducing the tension in the wall of the ventricles. And as I reduce the tension, I'm going down from 120. I want to go to -6. I'm connected to what again? I'm connected to the aorta. And I'm connected to the atrium. Left atrium. If we're looking here at the left side, it's going to be pulmonary trunk and right atrium if we're looking at the right side. So I'm going back from a tension of 120 or a tension that creates the pressure of 120 to become a negative pressure, suction force. I'm going down this way. So on my way down, pressure of the atria, let's say it was 4 because it has relaxed, it's filled with blood. And during ventricular contraction, the blood pressure in my aorta did reach 120. As I'm going down, I will become, let's say, 110. What's going to happen to the semilunar valve and the AV valve if I reach 110, let's say? Well, the blood going to be trying to move from the atrium to the ventricle? What do you think? Would the blood going to be trying to move from 4 to 110? Yes or no? If I have a pressure of 4, would I like to go to a pressure of 110? No. How about if you are 120? Would you like to go down to a pressure of 110? Yes. See, you've got the concept on here. So the blood's going to be trying to move backwards as I'm relaxing, reducing the tension, pressure is going down, 190, still. The blood is going to be trying to move backwards to the ventricle from the aorta or the pulmonary trunk, and it's not going to be trying to move down from the atrium to the ventricle. So what's going to happen? Remember how the cusps of the semilunar valves look like? When you are pushing the cusps down like this will allow you to close the valve. So the same exact concept. Blood is going to be trying to move backwards from the aorta to the ventricle and from the pulmonary trunk to the ventricle. So as it moves backwards, it closes the valve. And this AV valve was already closed. So now which valve is open, which valve is closed? Both of them are closed. So I'm relaxing, but both of them are closed. Will there be any blood moving into the ventricle? What do you think? Would there be any blood moving into the ventricle? No. AV valves are closed because the pressure inside is still greater than, inside the ventricles is still greater than the pressure in my atria. And now the blood was trying to move backwards from the arteries back to my ventricles, but they got blocked by the closure of the semilunar valves. So all the 4 valves are closed. All the 4 valves are closed. I'm relaxing, no blood moving in. I can't refill at this point. So what do we call this phase of the cardiac cycle? Where there is no change in the cardiac volume. I have a constant volume of my ventricles. We call this is my isovolumetric, but this time it's a relaxation phase. So isovolumetric relaxation phase, isovolumetric relaxation phase. I have constant volume of the ventricles during relaxation. I can, the volume of the ventricle is not changing because simply there is no blood moving in. All right. What if you kept going down? And you will. You kept going down, you reach 0 pressure, even a negative pressure. So what's going to happen now? Now it's not 110 anymore. It's 0 and negative pressure inside. So what you're going to do? The blood now will finally push the cusps of the AV valve, trying to move downwards towards my ventricle. So the blood is going to open the valve and moves down from the atria to the ventricles. We call this phase is my ventricular filling phase of the cardiac cycle. Ventricular filling phase is going to be responsible for around 70 to 80% of the blood that will fill the ventricles. 70 to 80% of the blood that fills the ventricles is coming down from the atria due to the ventricular relaxation. How about the remaining 20 to 30%? This is the amount of blood that will be squeezed down by the atrial contraction. All right, so again, what's going to be recorded on the EKG? You started first by P wave, which is marking the atrial depolarization. And when I depolarize the atria, what's going to happen? They will contract, squeezing what percent of the remaining blood again? Around 20% of the blood down from the atria to the ventricles. What's next going to be recorded on the EKG is going to be my Qrs complex. And remember, Qrs is marking the ventricular depolarization. When I depolarize the ventricles, remember, the ventricles will contract. And as I contract, I have an increase in the tension. I will reach a pressure high enough to close AV valves, but it's not high enough yet to open semilunar valves. So I'm still faced with a constant volume. So we call this phase is an isovolumetric contraction phase. You kept increasing the tension in the wall of the ventricles. You created a pressure high enough now to open the semilunar valves. Now the blood is going to be ejected into your arteries. Pulmonary trunk on the right, aorta on the left. We call this phase of the cardiac cycle, it's my ventricular ejection phase. Next on the EKG, what would I be recording? I will be recording the T wave, which marks ventricular repolarization. As the ventricles repolarize, they will relax. So as you relax, what happens to the wall tension? It's going down. And as you reduce the tension of the wall, what happens to the pressure inside? Reduction in the pressure. You will reach a pressure low enough to close semilunar valves, but it's not low enough to open AV valves. So at this point, there is no blood moving into my ventricles. So the ventricles will have a constant volume. So we call this as an isovolumetric relaxation phase. You kept reducing the wall tension. You create a pressure now low enough to open AV valves. And this will allow the blood to flow down into your ventricles. We call this as the ventricular filling phase. So during the ventricular filling phase, again, remember, 70 to 80% of the blood that fills the ventricle is moving down during this phase and not due to the atrial contraction. So a person can live with AFib. If the atrium is not contracting, a person will still be able to survive. 70 to 80% of the blood is moving not due to the atrial contraction, it's moving down due to ventricular relaxation. But a person can't live with ventricular fibrillation. I can't live with atrial fibrillation, it's fine. I will have complications but I can survive. I rely mainly on ventricular fittings, the ventricular relaxation, in order for me to move the blood down from the atria to the ventricles, not on the atrial contraction, which only participates of about 20% of the blood that fills the ventricles. Questions? All right, so when we look at the heart contraction, what do you think when you put the stethoscope? If you put the stethoscope on the heart, what do you hear? Lub dub, two sounds, boom, 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 boom. Those are two sounds, not two beats, right? So each two sounds is one beat, right? Boom, boom, this is one beat. Boom, boom, one beat. Boom, boom, one beat. What is lub dub? What lub dub, lub dub, lub? Lub dub are first heart sound and second heart sound. First heart sound is a closure of AV valves. And second heart sound is due to opening of or closure of the semilunar valve. So again, first heart sound is due to the created by the closure of AV valves. And second heart sound is created by the closure of the semilunar valves. So which one is going to be systolic? Which one is going to be diastolic? Which one is taking place during ventricular contraction and which one is taking place during ventricular relaxation? What do you think? First heart sound, so this is our first question for today. First heart sound, A is systolic, B is diastolic. And this is going to be the second heart sound. What do you think? First heart sound, will it be systolic or diastolic? Take your time, think of it. Diastolic means during ventricular relaxation. And systolic means during ventricular contraction. So first heart sound, so please put 1 and next to it either A, 2, either B. All right, so according to what you're picking, right? So put number 1, A, 2, B, or 1B, 2A. All right, is an answer. So what do you think? What do you think? Give me your responses, please. One A, 2B, 1A, 2B, 1B, 2A. So again, what is first heart sound? What is the first heart sound? First heart sound is closure of AV valves. So this is my atrium, and this is my ventricle. When would you close this valve? When you contract or when you relax? This is a question. This is A, this is B. So when would you close this AV valve? You can answer this in two ways. Either you think blood is going to be trying to move backwards. Here I have higher pressure. And because of the shape compared to the atrium, has lower pressure compared to the atrium. So this blood will be pushing the cusps up like this and results in closure of the valve. So this will take place when I am contracting. So first heart sound is going to be taking place during ventricular contraction, systolic. It's systolic heart sound. How about my second heart sound? When would this valve close? If the blood is going to be trying to move back from the artery, either pulmonary trunk or aorta, back to my ventricle. If the blood is going to be trying to move backwards, what's going to happen? This will push the cusps down, closing the semilunar valve. When would you be trying to pull blood back to the ventricles? If the ventricles are relaxing, if the pressure drops down, and the pressure drops down when you are relaxing the ventricle. So the semilunar valves closure producing the second heart sound is going to be during ventricular relaxation. It's a diastolic. It's a diastolic heart sound. So why is it so important? And how would I differentiate this? So how would I know which one is first heart sound, which one is the second heart sound? I am not an expert. I cannot differentiate from how they sound like. So you will not hear lubbed up. What you're going to hear is how would you differentiate? Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, there is no major difference in sound, especially if you haven't been listening to cardiac muscles, to the heart sounds for years. The pulse is not going to be detectable even. So at a regular rhythm, try to imagine it takes less than 1 second for each beat. So it won't be that noticeable for you to feel to detect that there is a pause, and this pause is after the second heart sound. So each lub dub is taking less than 1 second. Remember how many beats per minute on average? On average, 75 beats per minute. So it takes less than a second for you to produce first, second heart sound. So how would I know which one is first, which one is second? Your hand on the pulse while you're hearing. So your stethoscope on the chest of the patient, your hearing is lub dub, lub dub, lub dub. You can differentiate which one is first, which one is second. So what you're gonna do, you hold the artery of a patient. And the sound that you hear when the artery is pulsating When the artery pulses, this means it's a ventricular contraction. So the sound I hear now is first or second? When the artery pulses, the sound I hear in the same time, this means it's a first or second heart sound. First. This is the one that takes place during ventricular contraction. So when I feel the pulse and hear the sound, this is first. The sound that comes with no pulse in the artery, this is the one that takes place during ventricular relaxation. That's why you'll see, especially in older movies, they put the stethoscope on the chest of the patient and they hold the pulse. Why would they hold the pulse? For them to check the timing, which one is first, which one is second. And why would I care which one is first, which one is second? What do you think? Why would you care which one is first, which one is second? This is first, second, second, first. It doesn't matter for me. Why would I care? I won't rely on this to measure the blood pressure. I won't rely on the heart sound to measure the blood pressure. Murmurs, to know what valve is defective. Normally, what do you hear? You hear loved up. Those are normal heart sounds. What if I did hear lub, sh, dub? So this means the abnormal sounds that I hear is during what? If this is my first heart sound, this is my second heart sound. Is it during ventricular contraction or during ventricular relaxation? What do you think? I told you, which heart sound would you hear when you start the contraction? First heart sound. So if I did hear lub, sh, dub, lub, sh, dub, lub, sh, dub. So this sound that you hear is taking place when the ventricles are contracting. So here, if I'm looking at the chest of a person, this is my sternum. This would be the clavicle on here. And this would be my second, third, fourth, fifth rib, fifth intercostal. So this is going to be first, second, third, fourth, and fifth intercostal space. It's the mid-clavicular line. All right, so on the chest of the patient, there are favorable sites for you to be able to hear the different valves to detect which one is going to be producing the abnormal heart sound. So here we're looking at the chest of the patient, and here Can you imagine here what I'm drawing? All right. So looking on here, how the heart is going to be located in the chest. This is going to be the base of the heart here. This is going to be the right ventricle. This should be moving down a little. Because the ribs are curved. So this is moving down like this. This is pointing to the apex that is formed by the left ventricle. And you will see the aorta is traveling, crossing to the other side, like this. And the pulmonary trunk is going to be passing in front of it, crossing to the other side. Like this. All right, this is an approximate view on how each part of the heart is going to be located in relation to the chest. So we're looking here at the apex of the heart. So where can I find the apex? The apex is in the fifth intercostal space, the fifth space between my ribs at the mid-clavicular line. You draw a line in the middle of the clavicle, you keep going down to the fifth intercostal space in an easier way, just below the breast. All right, underneath the breast. So we're looking here at this point. This is pointing to the apex, and the apex is the best side to hear defect in the mitral valve. Why? You see on here, this is my left ventricle, and this is my left atrium. Do I normally hear the sound of the blood flow? Is it something normal? Is it normal to hear the sound of a blood flow? No. Why? Because the blood travels in a lamellar pattern. And the lamellar pattern of the blood flow doesn't produce a sound. Sound gets produced only if the blood flow becomes turbulent. And when would I have a turbulence in the blood flow? Either the valve is too tight, so we're gonna call this is a stenosis, stenotic valve, or if the valve here is leaking. So it allows the blood to travel in an abnormal direction. So it allows here, in the case of mitral valve, it allows the blood to move from the left ventricle back to the left atrium. So this is going to be a regurgitating valve. This is a regurg. So again, what we're looking at in here, we have two major valvular defects. We have either the valve is too tight or it's leaking the blood backwards. This creates a turbulence in the blood flow. And this turbulence in the blood flow, where is it going? It's going towards my apex. If the valve, the defective valve, is the mitral valve, so the turbulence is going to be taking place in the left ventricle, so you can hear it best at the apex. And where on the chest would I hear the apex of the heart? In the fifth intercostal space at the mid-clavicular line. So when I hear lub, sh, dub, this tells me what? If I did hear lub, sh, dub, at this point on the chest of the patient, on the apex, this tells me that most likely this is going to be a mitral valve defect. Is it a stenosis or a regurg? Would I have lub, sh, dub? If the mitral valve is stenotic or regurgitating? What do you think, logically? When is this taking place? Again, when is it taking place? Lub, first heart sound, sh, dub, second heart sound. So this is taking place when? During ventricular contraction or during ventricular relaxation? What do you think? What do you think? Lub, sh, dub, lub, sh, dub. So this is during ventricular contraction or relaxation here. Contraction, all right? So which defect will cause a turbulence in the blood flow during ventricular contraction? So here, if I have a stenotic mitral valve, when I contract the ventricles, would there be any turbulence in the blood flow? What do you think? When I contract the ventricles, I push the blood out, and the AV valve here is going to be closed. So I won't have blood moving down, because my problem is not when the blood moves out of the ventricles. The problem is when the blood moves down from the atrium. All right, so would I have any sound during ventricular contraction if the valve was stenotic? No. How about this here? I hear lub, sh, dub at the apex. So most likely it's going to be mitral problem. So lub, sh, dub, this means I am taking place during ventricular contraction. Would the blood pass through the mitral valve if it's leaking during ventricular contraction? What do you think? When I contract, I squeeze the blood. So if the valve is leaking, it's not closing. So what's going to happen? The blood is going to be going up into my atrium, and thus is going to cause turbulence. So it can create this murmur. So when I hear lub, sh, dub at the apex, this tells me what? This tells me it's a mitral regurg. How about if you did hear something different here? You hear this time lub, dub, sh. Lub, dub, sh. So this is a murmur that takes place when? During contraction or relaxation, after second heart sound. Second heart sound marks the ventricular, remember? Relaxation. So here, In which case would I have a murmur when I relax? If the valve is stenotic or if the valve is regurgitating. So when would you have turbulence in the blood flow again? If the blood is moving down from the atrium to the ventricle. In this condition, the blood is moving through a narrow valve, and this what will cause the turbulence of the flow. So when would this take place? Moving the blood down from the atria to the ventricle when the ventricles are relaxing. So yes, this murmur is the one that matches the mitral stenosis. Does this make sense? I'm not expecting you to diagnose diseases based on the heart sounds and murmurs. All right, I'm not expecting you to do so. What you are supposed to know for this class is that we have two different types of valvular defects, which are stenosis and regurg. This is a leaking valve. This is a narrow valve. What else should you know? You should know that first heart sound is marking the AV valve closure. And the second heart sound is marking the semilunar valve closure. This is what you should know. What else? You need also to know where can you hear each of the four valves best on the chest of a person. So we did mention one of them so far. Mitral valve, you hear it best at the apex of the heart. How about if I have turbulence in the blood as it passes through a defective tricuspid valve? So where would you hear the turbulence here? You will hear it in the right ventricle. And where is the right ventricle is going to be located? At the lower part of my sternum. So where would I hear a defect, a murmur resulting from a defect in the tricuspid valve? I will hear it best at the lower end of my sternum. This is where I hear the tricuspid valve best. Again, why? Because the turbulent blood is going to be traveling down into the right ventricle, and the right ventricle is directly behind the sternum. How about my pulmonary trunk and my aortic semilunar valves? If you notice on here, if you've got a defect in the pulmonary trunk, so the turbulence of the blood is going to be traveling along the pulmonary trunk. And you see the pulmonary trunk is traveling from the right side to the left side of the chest, as you see. So where would I hear best the pulmonary trunk? You will hear the pulmonary trunk best and the sternal margin on the right or left? On the right or left side? What do you think? Is this the left or right side? Left. And this what gets many of you confused. Why? Because you know that pulmonary trunk is coming from the right ventricle, so you're expecting it to be heard on the right, but actually not. You go back here on how the vessels are going to be traveling, you will see that the pulmonary trunk crosses from the right side to the left side. It crosses from right to left. Yes, it's attached to the right ventricle, but it crosses from right to left. So you will hear it best on the left sternal margin. How about the aorta? You see, aorta is traveling from left to right, left to right. So you will hear it best at the right sternal margin. All right. So again, where would I hear the different valves? Mitral valve, you can best hear here at the apex of the heart, which is the fifth intercostal space at the mid-clavicular line. Where would you hear best the tricuspid valvular defect, a murmur resulting from a tricuspid valvular defect at the xiphoid process of the sternum, the lower end of the sternum. Where would I hear best the pulmonary semilunar valvular defect, murmur, at the left sternal margin? And where would I hear best the murmur resulting from a defect in my aortic semilunar valve? I will hear it best on the right sternal margin. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? So again, why did you mention how would you diagnose? Just to give you an impression about on how we use this information to diagnose problems. But I'm not expecting you to diagnose based on this information. All right? No, the leads, this is a totally different story. The leads of the AKG are going to be attached to the limbs and to the chest. Those are, so we didn't discuss them. We did not discuss the leads of the AKG. Each of them is going to be detecting the electrical changes of the heart from a different perspective. So you're going to have different graphs produced by the machine of the same electricity. So it's like what? In order to simplify, how come I have different pictures of the same changes in the electricity? As if I have multiple cameras around me and they are taking pictures of me. I'm the same person from different perspectives. Would you see the same exact picture? No, you will see different pictures of me. All right, so this is the same concept, but I will not be discussing the different leads and how would they appear on the graph. All right, so just for you to imagine, if you are working in a hospital or you get exposed to the AKG, so when you read the graph, we didn't learn how to read a graph in this course. We didn't learn how to read an AKG. We just discussed the very basic information concerning the AKG. Right? Those leads are like different cameras detecting the electrical changes of the heart from different perspectives. And they will be so helpful in determining which part of the heart is defective. If, for example, a person got a myocardial infarction, in this specific region, it will be manifested on those leads, and so on. All right, but this is something that we are not covering in this course. Is this clear, Rachel? All right, so few more questions that will be part of your in-class activities for today before we leave. So mention the location where you can best hear a defect, a murmur resulting from a defective and you got number 3 here. It's going to be the mitral valve. Number 4 is going to be tricuspid valve. And number 5, it's going to be the aortic semilunar valve. All right, so those are numbers 3, 4, 5 for today's in-class activities questions.